Once upon a time, there was a little red hen who lived on a farm with her friends, goat, pig, and dog. Little Red Hen loved baking, but it was hard work, and today she really wanted her friends to help her. She went to her friends and asked them, "Pig, dog, and goat, I want to make some bread and I need some help today." They all agreed that they wanted bread too, because bread is delicious. But when she asked them to help cut the wheat, they said that they were busy. So Little Red Hen went to the fields to cut the wheat. She took her long tool and cut the wheat down and bundled it up with a nice strong rope and tied it tight. And she drug the wheat all the way back to the mill to be ground into flour. After all of that hard work, she took a rest. When she woke up, she set to work laying the wheat out on her table and pulling the wheat berries off of the chaff. Her friends rode by on bicycles while she worked, and they said, "Hi, Little Red Hen. Would you like to come and ride bicycles with us?" "No, thanks," said Little Red Hen. "I'm baking bread today." Next, the hen put the wheat into the grinding mill where it would turn into flour. She put it all inside of the grinding mill, and she used the handle like this, and she turned and turned the grinding mill, grinding the flour, grinding the wheat all the way into small pieces called flour. It's the same flour that we use to bake bread and the same flour that we use to make pancakes and Play-Doh and all kinds of things. When she was done, she wiped her brow and went down for her rest. And the next day, she woke up and she was very excited because today, of all days, just like we get excited at Muck and Wonder when it's bread making day, for her it was bread making day, so she was very excited. She launched off of her bed right away, ran to the mill, and gathered her flour in a big cloth sack. So she had a big cloth sack and she scooped all of her flour inside of it. And then she took her flour sack and she drug it all the way up to where her kitchen was in her coop at the top of the hill. And it was very long. It was a long journey for her, and it was a very heavy bag of flour, and she didn't have any helpers. So it took her half the day to drag that flour sack from the bottom of the hill where the mill was to the top of the hill where her coop and kitchen are. So she drug and drug and drug all the flour all the way up the hill. Whew. By the time she reached the steps of her coop, she saw her friends resting in the hot sun. They asked her how she was doing and if she had baked her bread yet. She said she was still working on it, and off she went to the kitchen. "Would anyone like to help me?" "No, thank you," they replied. Red Hen, she didn't mind. Her hard work had paid off, and she was finally ready to bake her bread. She went to her cabinet and pulled down her ingredients, reminding herself what went into her loaf of bread. "Oh, yeast! I need this. What is the yeast for?" And then, "Oh, here's my flour. I'm going to use lots of that." And then water. Water's at the sink. And salt, just a little pinch of salt. And honey fresh from the bees. And she set to work mixing and kneading the dough. So she was mixing all the ingredients together, mixing and mixing and mixing. And if you've made bread at Muck and Wonder before, you know that when you use yeast in your bread, you have to put the yeast into a cup with warm water and honey, and then you have to let it sit for a little while and stir, stir, stir until it gets fluffy and frothy, and that makes really good bread. So once that's ready, then you can mix and stir. So mix and stir, mix and stir, baking bread that will not burn. And she would just keep mixing and mixing until it was all the ingredients were all mixed up together. And then she plopped her dough down onto her table, and she spread some more flour on the table so the dough wouldn't stick. And then she was kneading the dough, and making it nice and soft and fluffy, making sure all the ingredients got mixed together. Just like you at home might be kneading the dough, some Play-Doh with your mom or maybe your dad, and she has to knead the dough until it gets just right, and she'll then carve it into or form it into a loaf. So you can make a long, elongated loaf, or you can make a round loaf. Sometimes at our school, we just make a round loaf. So she decided that she was going to make a round loaf this time, and she took her baking pan and she put her flour on it, and then she put her dough on there, and then she put it in the window because it needs to stay nice and warm while it does its work rising. So the yeast is what helps the dough to rise. So Little Red Hen, she went to her living room and sat down and read a nice story while she was waiting for her dough to rise. And it takes about 45 minutes or so. And she went back into the kitchen, and her oven was nice and hot, and she slid her bread into the oven. And she went back into her living room, and she sat and waited for the bread to bake. And many minutes later, about 30 minutes later, a wonderful, amazing smell was wafting in spirals through the kitchen. Can you imagine the smell of the bread just wafting in spirals through the kitchen and through the living room and through the house into the porch to where her friends were resting, and all of them at the same time perked up. Delicious, they said. Fresh bread. I'd love to have some of that. And then off they went to go eat. But the Little Red Hen, she was exhausted. She had done 3 days of work for this bread. She had done all the work by herself to make the bread to put into the oven. She had asked her friends to help. And did they help her? No, they didn't help her. They rode bicycles and they laid on the porch. They didn't want to help. They do want bread, though. So Little Red Hen thought to herself, and she said to her friends, I want to enjoy this bread with you, but the work I did to make it was hard on my own. The reward paid off, but I'd rather have fun working together as one. Let's share this loaf, and next time we all work together. Do you think that's a good idea for her to give bread to her friends? I think so. Even though she worked really hard, she still would love to share what she made with her friends, because it's really fun to make something for other people and see how happy they are with what you made for them. But it is helpful to give your parents or your brother or sister some help. And at home you can do this. You can help sweep the floor. You can help wipe down things at home with water and soap and a towel, or you can help with the laundry. That's fun too. So I hope you have some great ideas of ways that you can help your parents and ways that you can bake this week even. Luckily, we don't have to work as hard as Little Red Hen to bake bread. We can usually bake it pretty quick. We just need yeast, flour, salt, water, and honey. That's it. And the yeast has to activate for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then the bread has to rise for about 45, and then you get bread in the oven for 30 minutes at 425 degrees, and it's delicious. So hopefully you guys can try that recipe out, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.